Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video with Swaggle. And in this video, we got some big news to talk about. Unironically, we actually have huge news coming out of CBCS. New labels. Finally, the long-awaited new comic book label for CBCS has been released, or if not officially released, certainly been leaked out there at New York Comic Con. And this is a big thing. This is a big deal because, for the longest time, people have been complaining about CBCS labels just not being up to snuff, not looking good enough. I mean, a lot of people have always had some harsh critiques about this label. And for a long time, CBCS had been saying that they've been working on a new design and they've been doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes. I've heard people murmuring for many months talking about how, they've seen these new labels. And finally here at New York Comic Con, it seems like they are starting the campaign trail or the press release for these new types of labels. So in this video, I want to show them to you. I want to go over them. Let's talk a little bit about them. Let's put on our graphic design hats and give them a little bit of a critique in comparison to that of CGC, which is obviously everyone is accustomed to the CGC label. So, that's what we're always going to be comparing them against. And then ultimately, maybe more importantly, ask ourselves the question, does this actually change anything? Would CBCS be able to recapture some of the market share it has seemingly lost in this last year? But of course, before I get into it, if you guys could like, comment, subscribe, I would appreciate it. Help support the channel, doing those things. Let's get into this video here today. Now, again, I showed you guys already the old CBCS label. Now, of course, we are familiar with their label in comparison to the CGC one here that I have to show you guys. Obviously, a lot of people have not liked this label because of the fact that the number kind of blends in to the label itself, and it doesn't really stand out. And that was always one of the interesting theories, because as far as I understood it, why CBCS prefer this type of label was the thought behind it was you don't want people to look at the gray. You don't want people to look at the label or the number. You want this to be kind of blended in so people actually look at the book. But folks, we know it doesn't really work that way, right? We have this adage of buy the book, not the grade, right? But we know what it is. Everybody just buys the grade, not the books. And our eyes immediately always get drawn to that number in the upper left corner, that blaring white. We want to see that 9/8 grade. We want to know how valuable our Darkhawk ones are going to be. And that's where everybody looks. And so that was always one of the major critiques, is that it just, it felt like it didn't have the same sort of pop that a book like that should on those labels. But with that being said, guys, let us show this current new label that CBCS has actually officially rolled out. Now, you guys will notice off the bat that this label is fairly similar to that of the CGC label. I mean, not to say that the labels weren't similar, but I mean, as far as, looking at it from a graphic design, like all the elements here you see the number in the upper left now has the white backdrop, just like the CGC case. I mean, there's even this dark blue strip up here at the top that adds a little bit of contrast. That is actually something similar to how CGC does it as well. You have, of course, the logo here on the right-hand side, which is similar to that of what it was before, except now it seems to be a gold logo versus a blue one. And then as far as the layout of the text, again, very similar to how CGC does it, where you have the title up here, you have the artist stuff, you have the significance of the book, and then you have any notes down here. So that is the current label, obviously very much in line to what a CGC label looks like. Now, in my personal opinion, there's something about it that I still don't think is quite as nice of a label as CGC has it. I mean, I don't have the graphic design vernacular to be able to explain to you what it is. Maybe some graphic design experts in the comments can actually weigh in on how they feel about this label. But it does feel like CBCS decided, how do we make a label that is effectively like the CGC one, just a little bit different and kind of our own thing. Here you see the back of the label here. They got the QR code up there, just like how CGC does it. And then I suppose any additional notes and barcoding that you would have there on the back. So very cool to see them actually do this. I mean, I got to give CBCS props for actually finally rolling out a new label. I mean, this has been something that people have complained about in the comic book hobby for a long time. And, you can't say now that they haven't heard the concerns and that they're not trying. So you got to give them a little bit of props for actually trying to roll out a new label, and we'll see if it ends up being successful. Now, I do have a couple other shots of it. This is sort of a low-res photo that was taken at New York Comic Con. There you can see some of the labels, some of the different grades. It seems like here, on this 9.2, we have kind of the gold symbol, and then here on the 9.8, we have maybe a blue or a purple on the CBCS logo. So I'm not actually sure if there's going to be a distinction depending on the grade of what the color of the CBCS thing would actually be. That would actually be kind of interesting. Maybe if it was like a Silver Age book, it's a certain color, or if it's a modern book, it's a certain color. That could be kind of a cool, unique custom feature. And then I thought this was interesting that, now apparently if they give 9.9s and 10s here, this thing in the corner is actually going to change. So the 9.9 for this Guardians of the Galaxy 5 actually has a blue background compared to the white one of the 9.8. And then the 10 actually has the gold number and then the black background here. The 9.9 also has the gold number. And this is actually similar to, I think, kind of what Beckett does. If you guys are sports cards fans out there, or I guess collectible card fans, you would know that CBCS and Beckett are actually related to each other, or they're sister companies under the same sort of umbrella. And I believe that Beckett actually has kind of a similar thing where when they get the Gem Intense, they put the black label on it and makes it a little bit more special. So that could be something really interesting. And based on where CBCS is going, this could be a push to kind of lock in the modern grading market, because obviously you're not going to get any 10s for a Golden Age or a Silver Age book, with this grade. So this label is kind of meaningless. It really only applies to sort of modern comic books, and I'll talk about that in a second as to why I think they're making that push. And then here you see their gold label. Again, maybe still similar to what their current gold label is. Obviously the layout is more like CGC's, and then maybe a little bit of contrast behind the actual number, which again was something that had been an issue for many comic book collectors for quite some time. But there you see the new labels, guys, coming out of New York Comic Con. Do we actually think that this is going to make a difference? What do you guys actually think about some of these labels? I mean, on the one hand, I actually do think they're probably look better, or they do look better than the old labels. I mean, I do like some of the rearrangement of the text and the fine print. I think that maybe the font needs a little more contrast in it. I noticed that it kind of blends into their light blue label a little bit too much for my liking. I mean, it could be the scans itself. I'd actually have to see it in person to make that determination. But one of the things that I thought was interesting is even that blue bar at the top, adding that, like how the CGC labels go. I mean, this could have been an internal discussion for them where, imagine you're somebody who has a wall, right? And you got all these CGC books at the top of it. And then you have this one CBCS label. I mean, I'm sure you guys feel the same way. You have your OCD and it kind of bothers you that the CBCS label looks different than all the other CGC labels. I mean, maybe that was one of their directives of hey, let's just make this label look as much as CGC's label as possible, of course, giving it a little bit of difference so that when someone has a wall, they can just put our book right next to their CGC book and that person wouldn't be bothered. So it's all the same to people for the most part. And I think that probably was a smart thing to do. I mean, you could say that they should have just done their own new, totally separate thing. But I feel like right now CGC has so much, market share that it's going to be hard for them to really, unseed, the king of that hill at this point. So, it's one of those that, if you can't beat them, you might as well join them. Now, I thought it was really interesting to do that black label or the gold number if you get a 9.9 or a 10. That seems like definitely a push to get the modern market, at least that market share. And one of the things that I've always heard about CBCS is the one way I think that they can gain the most ground is probably for modern comic books. I mean, everybody already knows that there's a value difference and there's a value gap, and changing that is going to be so hard. So if you're somebody out there who has an Action Comics #1, I mean, who are you going to send it to? Are you going to send it to CGC or are you going to send it to CBCS? You're going to send it to CGC because you want the most money you can get out of that collectible as possible, and that's the one you're going to go to. But if you're somebody who has a new comic book and maybe you just want it in a slab and you don't really care too much about the value, you're just having it there as a collectible, well, then maybe you'll send it to CBCS because you just want it in a case. And if you can get, a 9.9 and a 10, on one of those modern books, you can have that kind of cool flex label. That might be a really fun thing to have for a lot of collectors. Well, that is all for this video. That was a quick little news story coming out of New York Comic Con. CBCS rolling out their new labels. Well, it'll be interesting to see if they actually have a full-on marketing campaign for this type of thing. I've been making jokes here, with people outside the YouTube on Instagram and things like that. That it's like, CBCS, they can make so many funny commercials. Pull out the flamethrowers. Call up Swaggle I can come up with some hilarious ideas for you guys. Anyways, that's all I got. What do you guys think about the new labels? What do you guys think about this? Do you think that this changes anything for CBCS? Would you consider now sending your books to CBCS just because these labels look different? Anyways, that's all I got for this video. Like, comment, subscribe. See you on the next one.